Hi, my name is Anthony Jacks.
Hi, I'm Chandler Jacks with Jacks Brothers Farming. We grow tomatoes, corn, alfalfa, and wheat.
And we're third-generation tomato growers. We grow tomatoes in San Joaquin County, which is a specialty crop. We purchase the seeds, and in February or March they are planted in the greenhouse. They are grown there for 60 days, and then April or May we plant them in the field, where they're grown for 125 days until harvest.
We prepare the beds using our implement called a performer. The performer shapes the beds to make a nice seed bed. We grow our tomatoes on 80-inch tomato beds.
We use drip tape to irrigate our tomatoes. Here's an example of the drip tape. It's buried about 12 inches below the ground and 30 inches apart, and the emitters emit the water to the plants. We could also put nutrients such as fertilizer in the drip tape, which goes directly to the plants. We also use moisture probes in the field to monitor the moisture in the dirt. They're about 2 feet long, and they have a computer base that goes to your phone and lets you know the real-time moisture of the dirt.
Once the beds are prepared, we begin planting. We plant transplants that are about 6 to 8 inches tall. We use a Chechi planter that plants the tomato plants. There are 3 people on the back of the tomato transplanter that drop the plants into the carousel, which puts them into the ground. We want to make sure that we put them deep enough to be in the moisture. The planter also emits water onto the root ball, which helps keep the plant alive until we can get the water to it. We plant about 7,800 plants per acre, 18 inches apart.
Once they are planted in the ground, we as producers take great care into growing the plants. We have to watch them carefully, give them water, give them nutrients, and watch out for pests. We try to do things very sustainable, like use the drip tape. That way there is no waste of water. Everything is used directly by the plants. We grow about 6 different types of tomatoes here. Processing tomatoes are specially developed. They have thicker skin which can be mechanically harvested. Processing tomatoes have been developed with different disease resistances. That way they will not get bothered by certain viruses that plague us out here.
We conclude our growing season in September, then we start to harvest. We use our CTM tomato harvester to harvest our tomatoes. The header picks up the tomato plant, brings it up the header chain into the shaker, which has lots of fingers that shakes the fruit off using weights. The extra vine then goes back into the chopper, which chops up the tomato vine and makes it into compost for the field. Once the harvest is done, we incorporate the organic matter into the ground and till the soil and get it ready for next year. The tomatoes then go onto the conveyors and back to the sorters. The sorters throw out dirt clods and other green waste. They then go up the elevator chain into the trailers where they will go to the processor. The tractor drives along the harvester. The tractor driver has to maintain a certain speed going back and forth to fill the trailer evenly. Once the trailers are full, the tractor driver unhooks and the truck picks up the trailers and drives them to the cannery. Each trailer carries about 25 tons of tomatoes. Once the tomatoes leave here in the trailers, they go to the processing plant.
Hi there, welcome to our Liberty Packing Factory. My name is Aaron Petro. You're currently at the 2nd largest factory in the world. The other 2 factories that we have, one in Sacramento is the largest in the world, and then the one that we have here in Los Banos, right down the road from here, is the 3rd largest in the world. So combined we do about 110 truckloads per hour of tomatoes. It's quite large. We typically run from July 15th or so all the way till about October 15th. So it's usually about a 90-day season nonstop. So you saw the trucks leave the farm. They come here to the factory. They may be on the road for about an hour to 2 hours, depending on how far we are from the factory. First, we have to weigh them to see how heavy is the load of tomatoes. And then next, we have to take a sample for grading. So we look at the quality of the tomatoes inside the trailer. We make about 3 main products here. We have bulk tomato paste, we have diced tomatoes, and we also do some special items like fire roasted tomatoes. We'll do ingredients mainly. So these are going to be big boxes of tomato paste, big bag inside of a box, or bag inside of a drum, or we'll do smaller sizes like cans or pouches. But all of it goes to other companies for them to manufacture soups, juices, ketchups, pizza sauce, pasta sauce. So if you've ever enjoyed a pizza at Domino's, that contains tomatoes from California, made here in Los Banos. also things like Heinz ketchup and salsas all over the place. So really excited to have this type of product here in California. So we take these tomato trailers up to the unloading station, which for us is up on a hill. It's a lot gentler using water and gravity to bring the tomatoes into the factory. But you can see the tomatoes are quite robust. They're very, very firm. We pick them when they're very red. And we have about 58,000 pounds of tomatoes inside that trailer. So once we get to the unloading station, we basically flood them with water and then we get them close to the receiving flume, open the door in the back of the trailer and the tomatoes whoosh out. We'll unload these trailers into a flume, which is basically like a canal. And from there, it's on a non-stop path to turning into a final product or paste or dice. Once we wash the tomatoes in that first stage, we're also going to remove what we call MOT, material other than tomatoes. That's going to be vines or corn cobs, sticks, dirt or rocks. Anything that's not a tomato, we're going to pull it out. We have both machinery that can remove the MOT, optical sorters, different removal systems, and we also have manual sorting that can remove the MOT. So for tomato paste, the first step we have to do is crush the tomatoes. So we turn them into a pulp, which would basically be like putting tomatoes in a blender. Those tomatoes then go into their very first stage of cooking. There's two types of temperatures we can cook the tomatoes at. One is what we would call hot break, very high temperatures, almost boiling at 200 degrees Fahrenheit. And the other temperature would be cold break, a little bit lower at about 165 degrees Fahrenheit. So once the pulp's been heated up at either the hot or the cold break temperatures, we now have to make juice. The really cool thing about tomato paste is it's just juice that we remove the water from. So we have different specifications of juice we can make here. And the specification is going to be how much skin or seed does the customer want inside the juice, or how little. And it would all be about texture. How does it feel in your mouth? So for pizza sauce, you're going to want a lot of peel and a lot of seeds because pizza sauce are very thick and chunky. But for something like tomato juice, you wouldn't want seeds in your juice, or you wouldn't want seeds in your ketchup. You want a very smooth texture. The tomato juice that does make it through the juice stage will then go to our evaporators. So it takes 6 pounds of tomatoes to make 1 pound of tomato paste. So that's about 36 tomatoes are needed to make 1 pound of tomato paste. So you can imagine the difference between the two. 5 pounds basically is being evaporated. So it's quite a lot of water in the tomato. Tomato's about 94% water. So we're really working to remove the water, and that water can then be recycled in the factory. The evaporators use a really large amount of steam because they're so big. And so if you drive by the factory and you see puffs of white coming out of the factory, that's steam, that's just used water. So once it's in evaporation, it's probably about an hour and a half to 2 hours to remove all the water that we need to remove based off the customer specification. And then from there, we have to make it so that we can package it. It has to be able to go into the warehouse for anywhere up to 1 year. That's what's really neat about the bulk tomato processing is tomatoes are maybe fresh for a week or two in your kitchen, but what we do here is we put them into a shelf-stable format so that they can be used year-round. So you can enjoy pizza sauce anytime and ketchup any time of the year. So we have to package the tomatoes. In order to do that, we have to heat them up really hot to kill any more bacteria or yeasts or mold, any microorganisms. We inactivate them. We put it into what we call the flash cooler, which basically in the blink of an eye will cool the paste down from about 215 degrees down to about 95 degrees. And once it's been cooled down, we now have it in a format where we can package it. We can fill it into a bin, we can fill it into a drum, and we can basically put it into storage until the customer's ready to ship it anywhere in the world to turn into their final products. We can also turn the tomatoes into what we call diced tomatoes, which is a quicker process, a lot simpler, but instead of sending the tomatoes to the hot break tank, we send the tomatoes to a peeler. And the peeler basically just removes the skin on the outside of the tomatoes. We can then cut the tomatoes in any number of sizes into cubes or into strips, or we can even chop it very, very small into what we call a ground tomato. Diced is really important for salsa. If you've ever had a chunky salsa with tomato pieces in it, that's from the diced process here. We reuse everything that we can. We don't like to send really anything to waste. So the skins and seeds from making juice goes to pet food. The water can be recycled multiple times in the system. We just let the water go out to a big lake. We call it our cooling pond. and it will sit in the pond for about 30 hours. And in the process, it will lose about 30 degrees of heat so that we could bring it back in and use it again once it's cooled down. So it's very natural. In the wintertime, it turns into a refuge for birds that are flying overhead. So you'll never see Morningstar in the grocery store. We don't have a brand. We don't make finished goods that you could buy, but our customers buy from us. They basically take the bin of tomato paste or the drum, and they'll send it to what's a really big kitchen. And they'll add water and seasonings and maybe salt and sugar and vinegar for ketchup, just like you would make things at home in your kitchen, but at a very big scale. Our paste is mainly an ingredient that goes to these large kitchens, and they decide how they want to make different products that can then go to serving people, to feeding people. They also go into pizza restaurants. So some of our brands also go to support Domino's or Pizza Hut or Taco Bell or McDonald's. And you'd never see their name on the label because they're making products for those restaurant chains. We love that we have this tomato industry in California. California supports 95% of the United States processed tomatoes. So somebody in New York City could be eating ketchup that are grown from tomatoes from California. Even higher likelihood they came from Morningstar because of the size of this company. So it's really cool to have California with such a really special crop that nowhere else can grow to the same size and quality and consistency that we do here. So we really hope you enjoy tomato products and that you look at them a little differently now that you know that they pretty much came from your backyard. Thank you.
Tomatoes are very healthy for you also. They're packed with lycopene, which makes them red, and it's a healthy antioxidant. They're also high in vitamin C. A fun fact is that people think that tomatoes are vegetables, but they're actually a fruit. Next time you go out to dinner, support a tomato farmer and order a pizza.